Well, hey everyone, good Thursday evening. You are tuned in to Bowling with the Fef, a platform for you to share your unique bowling story all live on our YouTube channel. This thing is growing and growing. Happy to report that we are in excess of 100 subscribers, 110 at the present time, and have a Facebook group if you're interested in joining. That's growing as well. Bowling with the Fef on Facebook. It's a public group. Feel free to jump in, share some, facts about bowling, stories of your own, stories of your favorite pros or amateurs, things like that. We love to chat back and forth about that stuff in that group, and I'm happy to run it. Also, if you're watching on replay, feel free to be part of the conversation. Shoot me a comment, and I will definitely reply. If you've got questions about the show, about the people on it, I will do my part and try and get you some answers, and we'll keep the dialogue going that way. Tonight, I am pleased to have with us the PBA Commissioner, Tom Clark of Muskego, Wisconsin. He is currently hanging out in Sturgeon Bay. Tom, thanks for joining us tonight.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for what you're doing for bowling and all your shows. It's awesome. Thank you very much. Always great to talk about bowling. So let's do it.
Absolutely. I love it. It's a labor of love, as I've said before, and certainly pleased to make your acquaintance and like you said, chat up really the greatest sport out there, in my opinion. But I'm gonna have to start with something about basketball. I mean, we're in Wisconsin, and you live maybe 20 miles from the Fiserv Forum. And I understand that the PBA has some history with Chris Paul. There was this celebrity doubles tournament that was named after him. Are you cheering for the Suns?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Chris Paul because Chris and his family have become really good friends. And no, it wasn't just a little tournament. I mean, that's something we did for 10 years. And it's always been one of our highest rated shows, and one of the shows I'm really proud of that we started. And we started it together with Chris because of the person that he is, and because of the person he is, we got these great celebrities to be on every year, starting with LeBron James the first year, and great stars from all walks, from Kevin Hart and Nelly and Ludacris and Lil Wayne and Dwayne Wade and Blake Griffin and James Harden, you name it. One buck that we had on is PJ Tucker. Because PJ was Chris's teammate in Houston. So when we did the event in Houston one year, PJ came out and bowled, and he was part of the PJ and EJ team. His partner was EJ Tackett. And so we had Chris. But Chris Paul is just really near and dear to my heart. It's the only team that I would ever root against the Bucks. And we're barely rooting against the Bucks because my son and I are big Bucks fans when they're not playing Chris Paul. So it's kind of interesting.
No, fair enough. Makes total sense. I'm a Bucks fan from birth, so I guess we're going to have to agree to disagree on this particular series, but I definitely get where you're coming from. Talking about your son, it sounds like a little more than a week ago, you and your son had probably the best seats in the house at the USBC Open Championships when Sean Rash took the lead in all of them. Tell me about that experience. What was it like?
Oh, it was awesome. I mean, Sean was awesome, and I asked Sean to be on our team and at the USBC Open, and he took me up on it, and he bowled doubles with my son, and so we watched all his games up close, and he's in the lead in all events now. 22-64, I believe he shot, and and there's only a couple days left. We were, and it looks like he could win an eagle, and it was great to see a guy like him reach a level of focus for those 9 games. I think he had 3 opens in 9 games. He finished, like, he struck in every 9th frame of all 9 games, and he finished every game with, it seemed like 7 in a row to finish every game. And he never got out of the ball he was using. He used the same ball the entire time. and he kept trying a different ball, like on fill balls, to try to think ahead of transition, but he always ended up going back to that same ball, and was really proud of him and exciting to watch. I mean, there's so much prestige on the USBC Open, and there's there's a lot of luck involved, and it's only 9 games, but it's always special, to do well in it, and he just put on an incredible show. Yeah, my son got a really good front seat at how to maintain a level of excellence, and I think he'll never forget that experience. That was my son's first USBC Open, and he shot 600 in team. He shot 600 in singles. But in the doubles with Sean, he didn't have his highest set, but they still are going to cash. They're still going to do well because Sean shot 750.
That always helps.
So, yeah, it's nice when your anchor bowler is shooting 750. So
sure. Now, I noticed when you started that answer, the first thing you brought up was focus. And
yeah.
I've heard you talk about that in interviews, in a video, I believe, about Junior Gold. What is it about focus that has you convinced that that's such a key to bowling at the highest level? And what does that look like when somebody has a high level of focus?
Yeah, they almost seem to be, they're so locked in on what they're doing, and they stay in that same space. A lot of people call it being in the zone, and it's really focused. And it's kind of like, just think of a camera and how you're trying to look at something far away and dial it and dial it and dial it. Or like when you get your eyes checked, and they say, is it better, worse? And if you just keep locking in and then turn it again and turn it again, and all of a sudden it's in perfect, clear motion. And you can see that the player has put the puzzle together, from bowling ball to how they're approaching the lane to how they're approaching every game, and how they're looking. And you're looking at each shot as it comes up, as opposed to thinking of a final result or what place they're in or any of those things. And when someone is doing that, it almost like for me, just having watched so much pro bowling, it almost feels like there's a light being shined down on that person. And you can walk through the building and go, wow, he's focused, and I think it's going to come down between these people. And I could pick out who's going to win tournaments really early based on just the way they're carrying themselves and how they feel, so dialed into what they're doing at the moment. It's really about being in the moment, being in the zone. They're all the same thing. It's all the same thing. And I just kind of use the word focus. But even with my son, I can remember an event where, I've watched him all year bowl every weekend in really highly competitive youth events. And one week I just knew, wow, he's focused. And I told people around, I said, he's in really good focus right now. And he won that tournament, and it's just, I don't even know if I can find it. I think when you find it as a player, as a bowler, it's when you find it, I don't know that for a fact you're in it. You just stay there, and other people can tell you're in it. But no, the level, the difference in players on the PBA Tour level is so small, and the margin for error is so small, and the amount of ways you can attack bowling and how you can decide to go at it are so varying, that it always ends up coming down to that almost emotional or mental or presence. And I think the same thing happens in any sport. You were talking about the NBA to start. You can tell when the Bucks are focused. You can tell when they're in the zone. You can tell when a shooter is there. You can tell when a shooter isn't there. And all of a sudden they're complaining about different things that are all around them, instead of just kind of rising above all the competition, based on their ability to get in that zone. And if you could bottle it up, you would. But for the most part, it just comes from being really practiced and really concentrated, and sometimes just really just trying to have fun and let it happen. But it all comes down to being in the moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the players on your tour are absolutely excellent at it. I mean, I don't even have to say that.
Yep.
When we talk about this last kind of swing of events, of the events at Bayside Bowl, Bowl Expo, the Strike Derby, things like that. After you got back, I mean, we're talking about a month-long thing. You proclaimed as part of a lengthy social post that you come back with proof across the board bowling is back. Can you elaborate on what made you think that, what the proof part is in that?
Sure. Well, it's kind of across the board. I mean, we had been through this very difficult year, with the pandemic. And for one, we didn't have fans. We couldn't have fans at our events. And we did a full year of television and events and championships without fans there. And at Bayside Bowl, when we brought back the King of the Lane series, that was the first time that we had fans. And it was electric. I mean, and they couldn't wait to be there, and they didn't stop cheering, and they had fun, and it was like the fans are back, And then we went to Detroit, and we packed, the arena there, which I love that arena. We had 300 people in there, hanging from the rafters, making a lot of noise, having a lot of fun, and that's where I would refer to the players and bowling action being back because I don't know if you got a chance to watch that on CBS Sports Network, but
I did.
that was exciting. I mean, that was exciting. It was like Anthony Simonson against Kyle Troop, and they went to a roll-off after tying. And I mean, it was an incredible match between two superstars, and it just reminded me that the excitement of pro bowling at the highest level, that's back. And then I went to part of that month was the Teen Masters youth tournament. And seeing hundreds of kids that are just so into bowling that they're just addicted to it and love it. And, basically a sold out tournament, just like this week's Junior Gold has almost 4,000 people, 4,000 kids wanting to bowl. And I mean, that was showing me, and that was real. This is the Junior Gold, what didn't happen last year because of the pandemic. So the youth bowling is back. And so just across the board, I just felt like everything that was sort of taken away from us that I love was back, and it was all positive. And I went to Bowl Expo during that month, and Bowl Expo, if you haven't had a chance to see it or be a part of it, it brings the entire industry together, and bowling center managers and proprietors, manufacturers, and they're all there, and everybody had a story of comeback, and everybody had a story of, you know what? We open the doors and the people are ready to come back, and we're selling more product than we have in a couple of years. Or, we were down for a while. We had to close down for so many months, but we were able to improve our bowling center and make capital improvements. And now that we've opened the doors, the people love them, and everybody was positive. So to see the industry, the fans, the players, the kids, that's what I meant. It's back, and nothing was negative. Everything was awesome. So
Yeah.
I think it's a good sign for going into next year.
Even missing your 25th wedding anniversary? I mean, are you sleeping on a couch right now?
Well, that's why we're in Sturgeon Bay right now. So we said from the start I'm gonna miss the 25th anniversary, but when we come back, we're gonna go up to the lake and have a few days here. And here I am talking to you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, wow, I really appreciate the time, but what a place to to enjoy yourself with your family. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun.
All right, so Mike Jakubowski is one of two previous guests that challenged you to be on the show and made the connection. That's kind of why you're here. In looking at your LinkedIn page, I noticed that you gave a bunch of recommendations. Didn't get any yet, but one of them that you gave was to Mike, and you mentioned. If you want an event that blows the roof off the joint, hire Mike. And that's a great endorsement. What makes Mike so special?
Oh, he's got a great rapport with the fans, and he is a fan, so he knows what they need to hear and want to hear, and he knows the game, so he knows how not to interfere with the game, enhance the game, and he wants everything to go well, and he knows how to mix music with fun and games, and just keeping everybody up and having a good time. And that was one of the first hires that I made when I went to the PBA back in 2008 or so, was to say, we need to improve the presence on the camera of people having fun. And so we brought him in, and he kind of brought along the idea of strike songs for players, and each player choosing what song they want to hear when they get a strike. And I mean, and he also just helps manage the crowd, in a way that um, makes bowling really electric to watch on TV. So, yeah, that's pretty much what I meant on him.
If you were on TV competing and you had your choice of strike song, what would it be, Tom?
Well, let's see. It probably, I'd probably have to be maybe Tom Sawyer by Rush, or maybe Sabotage by the Beastie Boys. Probably Beastie Boys or Rush. They're probably my two lifetime favorites.
Hey, those are great choices. Great choices. Nate Purches also challenged you, and he didn't challenge you on air on the screen because I neglected to ask him to go off the sheet. But he mentioned, of course, that he's going to be rooming with Rory at Whitewater. What should everybody know about Nate?
Oh, this kid's a lot of fun to watch bowl, first of all. Anyone that's seen him, he was on our first ever PBA Junior television show, which is a show we did this year that I think was a big hit and is going to be back every year. The PBA Junior is a cool new program that the PBA started for youth bowlers, and he made it to the finals and bowled against Spencer Robarge, who he's like a superstar already at age 18. But wherever Nate goes now, just from that show alone, he's signing autographs because he's one of these guys who's kind of unforgettable. You don't miss Nate. You don't miss seeing Nate. He's somebody that if he's in the building, he's there, and he lives and dies with every shot, and he gets his whole body in every shot, and he kind of understands that bowling is meant to not be boring. It's meant to be exciting, and it is exciting, and there's mystery in every single shot, and he really kind of embodies that. And he's only 18. He's got a great future ahead of him. So, he'll be the type of player where some people won't like him. Some people will be like, hey, I like somebody who's more cool, calm, the Earl Anthony type. I loved Earl Anthony, but I also loved Marshall Holman.
Yep.
And Marshall Holman was exciting and running things out and really showed his emotions on his sleeves. And Nate is kind of like that. He's also got a very unique bowling style. I mean, he's a two-hand bowler, but he is 6 or 7 or 8 steps sometimes, and he makes his spares with a ball without finger holes in it. And there's just things about him that you would never teach and are not in any textbook, but he gets the job done. So he's kind of becomes arresting to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you enjoy seeing that "Where is Rory Clark" hashtag on the sign that he and his crew were holding up at Strike Derby?
Yeah, and they had "Where's Nate Purches" when they were in Detroit, so they're talking to each other through signs on PBA shows. I don't know if that's good or bad, but yeah.
You had mentioned Bowl Expo. You also took home a nice award from Bowl Expo, the BPAA Media Award. What does it take to win that, and what does that mean to you?
Well, it means, the best thing about that was just being recognized and given an opportunity to talk to everybody at Bowl Expo gives me an opportunity to thank people that are the real reason you're there and the real reason that you're able to be recognized or get an award. So I really appreciate that by the BPAA, and I think it's more a nod to the PBA and how important it is to growing bowling and helping bowling centers. And so yeah, very nice of them to do that. And through my whole career, there's been a lot of different awards and things like that, and I really appreciate it. And you would think maybe, well, you don't need that, but it's always nice to be recognized, and it kind of makes you inspired to do more and more and more. But in this case, the best part about it was the chance to see everybody at Bowl Expo again, because that was another event that was canceled, last year. And I had been going to Bowl Expo for 15 years in a row, So to be able to go back, see the familiar faces, reconnect with them, thank the BPAA. And the BPA played a really big role in the PBA making its huge comeback over the last few years with their Go Bowling sponsorship and support when we were going out to find a new media partner. We ended up at Fox, and it really has meant a lot for the game and a lot for bowling. And it doesn't happen without the support of the BPAA. So it was good to be able to be there.
Sure. All that stuff, of course, doesn't happen without the origins of your bowling and your bowling story. So tell us how you first got into bowling and what those circumstances were.
Well, that's easy. I mean, I grew up in Syracuse, New York, and there was a really big bowling town when I was growing up. And my father is a scratch bowler since 1960. So he and my dad got me into it. He's still a good bowler. He's still, he bowled 300 a couple years ago, so I think my first league was a parent-child league, a father-son league at Solvay Lanes, and I remember bowling youth bowling at Fairmount Bowling Center in Syracuse, and bowling tournaments at Syracuse Bowling Center, and bowling in junior leagues and then junior traveling leagues, and getting around to all the centers and bowling all the high school kids. And that's why I wanted to bowl in college, is to continue that. It's just a lot of fun. So yeah, I think for a lot of people, it's their dad or their mom or their parents that get them into any sport. And I'm no different with bowling.
Yeah. You mentioned juniors in high school. Did you have a competitive high school team?
No. So it really felt like high school bowling because everybody on my team went to my high school, West Genesee High School. Everybody on the Flamingo Bowl team or the Lakeview Lanes team in Liverpool, New York, went to Liverpool High School. So we really didn't have high school bowling then in my area. It's great now they do. Like Rory's high school bowling was exceptional to watch at Muskego High School he bowled for. But back in my day, it was more a junior traveling league where you represented your bowling center against other youth leagues at other bowling centers, but they were all high school kids. So
okay. Fair enough. So you compete on those traveling teams. You decide you want to go to college and bowl in college. How did you end up at Buffalo State?
It's again really simple. I basically did a search of schools with bowling teams and journalism programs because I was always into sports writing, and I worked at the Syracuse Herald-Journal newspaper, the largest newspaper in the area. When I was in high school, I'd work there at night taking scores. I mean, I was just a big sports junkie nut, and got a job at the daily newspaper, and then they ended up letting me write stories about things, and so I got a lot of early experience in journalism, and so I figured that would be my major in college. So I wanted to go to a place that had both, and Buffalo is another bowling hotbed. And I knew a few kids that were going to a few guys that were going to Buffalo State to bowl, and they were very good bowlers. So I knew, and I think they had won the national championship a couple years earlier. So it was a good program, and they bowled against Erie Community College, which was one of the top 2 or 3 programs in the country at the time. So it was a great place to go bowl.
Sure. Tell me about the dynamic there. Did you have a coach? Were you going to big national tournaments, or were you staying kind of in that New York area?
No, we had a coach, and it was a good organizer, and we had a women's team, and we had tryouts, and we had transfers coming in from 2-year schools, and we bowled nationally. We bowled. I remember the most nervous I've ever been bowling was at the St. Louis match games, I believe it was called back then. And they used to have this huge college tournament in St. Louis at Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
And we went down there on Thanksgiving, and I was just thrilled to make the starting team, be on the team. And actually I was like the 6th man. And I went in, and we were in the lead. And I remember going in one game. I've never been that nervous. And I'll never forget. And I've told my son this. I'll never forget. I threw up my first shot, and I got I left at 3.610 or something like that. And I actually made it. And I came back, and I said, "Man, I'm nervous." And the coach just looked me right in the face, and he said, "Stop being nervous." And he was dead serious. And it snapped me right out of it. I mean, I stopped being nervous right there. So sometimes I use that trick on people. Stop being nervous.
Yeah.
You know? But no, we had national. Probably my best bowling accomplishment, and probably my last good bowling accomplishment, was at around 1990 or 91 when I won the ACUI East Region Championship, and there was some really good competition there. People that are pro bowlers, and I won it, and it won me a trip to Reno, which is the first time I ever went to Reno. This was before the bowling stadium.
Okay.
I won a trip to Reno to bowl in the national championship, which was happening at the exact same time as the ABC Masters. So
Wow.
there were guys like Mike Albee and Dave Ozio, feet just a few lanes down from where we were bowling. And for me at the time, that was huge. I mean, that was so exciting. And now I've been to Reno 10,000 times since. But yeah.
Sure. You talk about those really legendary names that we all know and remember now. Were any of those guys like the guy that you looked up to, that you emulated your game after?
Well, yeah, I mean, really, it was Mark Roth and Marshall Holman. I mean, those two, and it really was only them. They were just the two. And I remember watching videos of Marshall bowling, and we'd watch it in school, and just Cybervision, it was called. We'd just watch him bowl for an hour long, and with music playing, and just try to get that in your head. And Mark Roth, just the way he threw the ball, and so yeah, they were definitely the people that I was excited to see on television, and then try to copy. Pete Weber then Pete Weber, kind of became the next one that you were just excited to watch and try to see. I remember him first time I saw him on TV throwing the angle bowling ball, and it really just looked like that ball must have been alive or something. And now it would be the straightest ball on tour.
Right.
But at the time, it was like, what is that? What is that? I had to have an angle. Before that, you had to have a yellow dot like Marshall and Mark
Yeah.
Roth used. And so, yeah, but I've always, pro bowlers have always been the inspiration. And I always, we always talk about how the guys today are the inspiration for the kids growing up. I mean, Belmo and Rash and EJ Tackett and Simo and Kyle Troop and all these guys, Chris Prather. I mean, they're the ones these kids are watching, and when they're older, they're going to say it was because of them that they bowl the way that they do, or they let them get into their heads in order to improve at the game. And that's the most special thing about the PBA for me is how important you are towards the growth of the game and to kids.
Yeah. And then there's middle-aged dudes like me who are watching Prather and wishing, I could have a game somewhere near what he does.
Isn't he incredible? I mean, I've run out of superlatives for him, because you watch him bowl and you just say, "Is that perfect?" I think that's perfect.
Yep.
And it's just it's amazing. The game. People talk about it in different ways, but it's just gotten better and better because the players keep getting better and better and better. It's they only get there because of the people before them. That's why they're better. But this is the top level of the game that it's ever been right now.
Yeah, no doubt. So, some of my favorite memories in bowling happened while I was competing in college. And you mentioned, the time that you remember being nervous. Was that your favorite memory
A favorite memory of bowling?
of bowling in college?
It's one I remember. I mean, I think that my best memories really have to do with making friendships. Really, guy that was on my team, and we ended up rooming for a few years. He was the best man in my wedding. He's he's actually one of the great horse players in the country. He's won the national handicapping championship. He's kind of famous for his ability to pick horses and he's big in that industry. But he was a great bowler back then, and so making a friend like that, and then and I met my wife in college too. So being able to be at school because of bowling is why you end up with the friends or the partners that you have the rest of your life. So it's probably the most important thing about it. On the lanes, I think, winning that ACUI was probably the best memory that I had, because it was reaffirming to me that I could compete at the highest level, and because I really had come to the realization, having seen some of the other great players around the country, like the Chris Barnes, at Wichita, or Justin Romack and Pat Healy, the team at Wichita, watching them, it really kind of hit me that I'm never going to be better than them, and so you learned, okay, my profession is going to be in journalism. I'm not going to be a professional bowler unless I really would have to get a lot better to be anywhere near those guys. And so it was nice to win once, and then know that that was probably going to be it.
Sure. Speaking of that profession, you graduate. Did you start your own newspaper after you graduated college?
Yeah. I really enjoyed working at our college paper and learning how to design newspapers and manage the whole process. And when I got out, I just wanted to do the same thing and try and figured out a way to make a sports paper. And design it all myself, sell all the advertising myself, deliver it myself, write it all myself, lay it out, every single thing. And a little help along the way from just family, really not being able to hire people. And I had it really going well for a couple of years it was called the Syracuse Sporting Times. And it was all about Syracuse sports and Syracuse sports businesses. And I would get those businesses to advertise in it. That's what I did right out of school. That was a master's in business. Let's put it that way. It wasn't just journalism. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So you continue on and you end up at USA Today. What did it take to kind of climb the ladder and get to that point? Because journalism is a competitive business, as I can attest to. I'm a former former journalist myself on the TV side.
It is competitive every single day. You feel like every day is like you're up to bat, and if you strike out, you want that day to be over quick and get to the next day,
Yeah.
and that same level of focus is necessary. And a lot of people want to do that for a living, and especially in sports. But, I worked hard. I mean, I sold that paper and then moved down to Virginia and became a sports editor at a daily newspaper. And they liked what I did and moved me up to be a managing editor at a newspaper. And then a newspaper conglomerate bought my paper and moved me to North Carolina. And I was the executive editor of a 30,000 circulation daily newspaper in North Carolina, and a staff of 30, 40 people and in charge of that. And at all of the places that I went, it was really a relentless, pursuit of never missing a story and of being important for the community. And as a result, you win a lot of awards, or you get a lot of notoriety, national and local and state awards in journalism. And now your resume is interesting to a USA Today, which can really hire anybody they want, or they could back then, when newspapers were important, and I read USA Today every single day in college. I mean, and the National Sports Daily, which is also gone, but USA Today is not gone, but it's not what it was. It was, right. It was the largest newspaper in the country, and you pretty much had to read it. And so I always wanted to work there, and I always liked the way they laid out the paper. And a lot of the people that wrote for the paper became people that I looked up to. And so then when they decided to hire me, meeting those people and working right side by side with them was definitely an awesome feeling, because it was like the top of the profession. It was like, if you were in sports, it would be like playing for the best team, and being on that team and learning how each of those professionals handled their jobs. And and that was highly competitive every day too. You're at USA Today, you're competing against sports magazines like Sports Illustrated or Sporting News, and you're also competing against TV like ESPN and then the Washington Post and the New York Times and every local paper in the country, and trying to get people to understand they need to read USA Today Sports. And I covered mostly golf and tennis. And it gave me the opportunity to meet all of the leaders in those sports, because they all knew how important USA Today was for them. So So they wanted to talk to me, and not because it was me, because it was USA Today.
Right.
And then, but you have to do a good job in those conversations and meetings so that they'll trust you moving forward. And a lot of them are still friends. The most famous one was Billie Jean King. And Billie Jean King running World Team Tennis and being such a great promoter of tennis. She became a friend when I was at USA Today, and it's carried over into bowling. And she got involved with the PBA League when it first started. So, and you learn a lot just talking to Billie Jean King.
I believe it.
About the history of sports, about the history of everything, and then particularly women's sports. And it was an awesome experience. And I started, when I was at USA Today, I started writing a bowling column just because I love bowling for usatoday.com. But that was just above board. It wasn't my job. I did it because I liked it, and that kind of caught a little bit of fire in the bowling industry. People liked it, and that's why I got a job offer to go to USBC, and I felt like, I really want to help bowling, and that's where my passion was going to be. And it was extremely difficult to leave USA Today. I mean, my farewell party there was bad because I just cried. I couldn't speak. I couldn't give a speech, and it was really scary, really, because I had reached the pinnacle of my profession that I love, journalism, and yet was leaving. And so it was scary, but it was for bowling, so I got over it quick.
Sure. Those of us who maybe work in a different industry or don't have, the experience of working day to day in the PBA, in the USBC, may have some preconceived notion of how things are inside. Was it easy to make that transition for you to, to work at USBC and to do things that really, improve bowling for, let's face it, the masses, the nation?
Yeah, I definitely came in guns a-blazing and had to learn to dial back a little bit and get to know how things have gotten to where they are first before thinking everything, but the work ethic of daily newspaper journalists can fit anywhere, because you never feel like you're down. You work 24 hours a day almost. And so I almost had to dial that back a little bit too, because, some people want to have a normal life and not work every minute, so you figure out, how to temper that. But, I just had so much knowledge of bowling and I've been following it for so long, and then so much knowledge of other sports and how they progressed or how they became successful or what worked or what didn't work, that it really wasn't that difficult, to move into that profession. It just, the work environment was different, but and working, for a board and learning how all of those types of things work was a lot different than just trying to put out a newspaper every day. But another huge learning experience, and the people that were at the USBC when I was there are all, really knowledgeable and experienced and knew what worked and what didn't work. And they also gave me a lot of leeway, and they wanted me to be a change agent. So they didn't frown on me trying to change things. That's why I was there, so that was helpful too. They were all really good about that. And they let me do so many cool things. And I pitched so many things that I thought would help the game. And a lot of them were media based. And I think that at the time, the PBA, which really should be the leader in media for bowling, the bowling world, they liked a lot of the things that I was doing. And so they talked to me, and that's why I ended up leaving USBC to go to the PBA, where it was probably a better fit with my media background and work for the PBA. And I could do a lot of the things I had started doing for the USBC, and it would fit a little bit better with the PBA.
Sure. In those early days of the PBA, what do you remember? What do you remember about that transition, and how you got up to speed with a different organization, really the top professionals in the world?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. The first thing I ever did, we bringing our whole conversation back to Chris Paul and and the NBA Finals. One of the first couple weeks that I was working for the PBA, when I had been at USBC, that's when Chris Paul had contacted me about through his agent, who I knew, about what should I do, because I like bowling. I want to do a charity, and I taught them how to do a pro-am. And we did a pro-am in his hometown of Winston-Salem while I was at USBC. And it was amazing to me because I was just going down there to help him with a pro-am. But who showed up? LeBron James and Dwayne Wade and Carmelo Anthony and Dwight Howard. And so, when I went to the PBA, I said to them, we could do a TV show out of that. And they kind of looked at me like, yeah, let's see it happen. If you want to do that, if you really think we can do a TV show with those guys, then we need $150,000 because that's how much it costs to produce a TV show and have some prize money and stuff. And so if you can get the 150, we'll do it. And this is like my first couple of weeks with them. And I wanted to prove to the PBA that you can count on me to do things that are pretty incredible. And so I went to a great partner that I had met at Ebonite, Bob Reed, who's passed now, and told them about this idea about doing a celebrity pro bowling tournament on TV with the likes of Chris Paul and LeBron James. And this was 2008. I mean, this is when these guys were on the Olympic team, at the height of their fame as young, great players. And Bob Reed stepped up and said, "You got it. You got the money." And Ebonite became the sponsor. I went back to the PBA and said, "Okay, I got the money. Let's do it." And then we did it. And then still people didn't think it was going to happen. And I remember sitting in the front row with my boss, who was running the PBA at the time, Fred Schreier. And we're sitting there waiting, and the show's about to start. And who walks in? LeBron. And the minute he walks in a room, he owns the room. And he was going to be on this show. And Fred smiled. And Fred had actually known LeBron because he used to work at Nike. And so it was just incredible that we were able to pull that off. And that was my first event, with the PBA. So it was a good sign. That's why. And now you know why I root for Chris Paul, no matter who he's playing against.
Absolutely. Wow. That's
But then very soon we had issues with the PBA where the recession hit right after I joined the PBA. Yeah. So immediately we had to figure out a way to create efficiencies and not spend as much money and yet still provide as much television. And that's when we came up with the World Series of Bowling. And so the World Series of Bowling was in my first year, or 1 year into me working at the PBA, and that's lived on to World Series 11 now, and become just such a big part of the game. And it's really changed the international landscape of bowling, and it's made people understand that that there are great players all over the world, and that World Series, creating that out of necessity, but it becoming it becoming special and valuable, was really the other first thing I remember about starting at the PBA.
Sure. Which years would you say, if you could boil it down to maybe 2 or 3, were your favorite so far with the PBA?
Yeah, 2019 was my favorite. It was the first year that we signed Fox in 2018, and we were able to put that strike track that you see on the side of the screen. I mean, that was something I wanted to do for 20 years, and we couldn't do it because we didn't have the financial backing or the network that would be able to do it. And Fox stepped up and made it happen, and we were able to. We had more money than I had as the CEO and commissioner of the PBA. To be able to make a schedule that was almost exactly the way I would have wanted it, with many stops and then a big playoffs at the end. And every week was special. And you could feel the momentum building. The players were more excited because we had this new network partner, and it just seemed like we had new life. And you had just these incredible events, culminating with the final one was the playoffs when Chris Prather beat Bill O'Neill. It was an amazing match. It was at Bayside Bowl. You couldn't have a better crowd. It was packed. They were so into it. And on big Fox, we had finally got, because of the Fox deal, we were on network broadcast television for the first time in, decades regularly. And that was one of them. So that was so special. That whole year. And that was the year that Norm won 2 weeks in a row. Remember that?
I do.
And on dual pattern events. And, so it was, and the World Series that year was the first time it was ever live every night of the week. I mean, that was like a dream come true to have because when we started the World Series, those part of the efficiencies and one of the negative things about it was that it was we had to do a lot of tape shows. I don't want to do tape shows. We just had to. But with Fox, we didn't have to. They figured out a way to go live every night of the week with a World Series event, and we did that from again one of my favorite places, the Thunderbolt Arena. So that was that's probably my favorite year.
Yeah. Of course, you start as commissioner, you make that jump in, what was it, 11 or so?
Yes. So
Okay.
2000, from 2008 to then I was deputy commissioner. And
Okay.
then in 2011, Fred left and I became commissioner. Yeah.
Okay. How does one get comfortable in the role of PBA commissioner? Do you look back on the things that past commissioners have done and maybe, make it your own? Do you kind of fall in line, or do you really want to get your thumbprint on, what happens in the PBA?
No, I was already doing most of the jobs that you would be doing, and I was comfortable, taking responsibility for things, and so, I learned, early on how to take criticism and how to handle people not understanding a direction or a strategic plan as to where you're going, um, and so that's probably been one of my strengths too. It always bothers you. Anyone that says it doesn't bother you is lying. But learning how to live with it and keep moving forward and keep proving anybody wrong is probably a strength of mine. And so I'm never gonna shy away from making sure everybody knows that here's what we're gonna do, and if you want to blame me, blame me. So.
Yeah. Hey, journalists have to have a thick skin, and
That's
you
true.
come from that mold. So, yeah. How often would you say you have to make that call to discipline or fine a player? Is that on you?
Yeah, that ultimately that's on me, and I've had a few rough situations where I had to make calls, and I never want to discipline anybody. Sorry about this light.
Oh, that's all right.
I have to plug. I better plug in my. If I don't plug in my phone, we're in big trouble. It looks like it's about to go. It's about to. There we go. Yeah, no, I've had a. I never want to find. Can you hear me?
Oh, a little bit. You're kind of crackling out a little bit.
All right, you got me now.
There we go. Yeah, that sounds better.
Okay, good. Yeah, but we've had to find a lot of people, and we've had there's some members that we had to even remove from the PBA, and you always just have to look out for the organization, your partners, and that's how you make the tough calls, is to realize the most important aspects of the game, the other players, respect for the other players, respect for staff, respect for the bowling centers that invite you in, you know, respect for sponsors. So those are all usually the main reasons why you have to move in sometimes and stop someone from doing something that they know they shouldn't do, or is simply just against the rules. And if you don't keep the rules, you got nothing. So the rules are a big part of what I have to do, and I don't mind that. And for the most part, we don't have many problems. I mean, we have a great membership. The players are very respectful of the game. We have a lot of help from manufacturers, ball companies, who send ball reps to our events, and I always thank them for almost being like the police to watch over every single moment. But everybody knows the respect that they want to have for the PBA, so they wouldn't be a member of the organization if they didn't. So that's why it's usually an emotional moment or something that somebody regrets that ends up with them being fined. And I've had really good conversations with anyone that we've had to fine, and they always are apologetic and ready to move on. So, yeah, but that's another part of the job.
Yeah. You mentioned ball reps. You kind of crackled in and out a little bit there, so I didn't catch all of it. But when did that concept
Oh,
start? Did that start under your watch when ball reps became a little more visible and a little more involved in the players you know, competing, really?
yeah. No, it had been before me in bowling, but um, for a time it was illegal. It was made illegal for players to talk to ball reps while they were competing. And during my time, we got rid of that rule and made it legal again that you could talk to them. We have certain times that you can't, but for the most part, they become part of the tournament and you can talk to them. The reason why we made it legal was it was an unenforceable rule to a degree. I mean, the ball companies would send people, to these events, um, and they'd work as ball reps, and we'd say you can't talk to them. But then there were hand signals, and there's all kinds of ways to communicate. So, we
Banging
weren't
on
going to
trash
stop it.
cans.
Yeah, right, banging on trash can. So we weren't going to stop it. So to me, it's fine to have a coach and to have the privilege, really, and to earn the privilege of having that kind of second pair of eyes on how you compete, and so we made it legal again.
Sure. Not everybody thinks that way.
Oh yeah.
One of the opponents of that is Barry Asher, who told me on this show a few episodes ago that he thinks after the practice balls are over, those guys should leave the building. He said we didn't have scouts to check out the next pair when he was bowling, and if you're a
Mhm.
better bowler, you get more attention. I guess what would your reaction be to that?
I don't think he's wrong. I mean, I think that that's a solid take, and I understand it. And there's been times when we've thought about it, about going back and not allowing it, and ultimately we're okay with coaches, in bowling, and and um, and it's not just a ball rep from a company that can talk to somebody. It's a friend, that can, and so, I understand why some people don't like it. I personally, don't really like it on TV that much when you see um, someone just unable to compete on their own, or it feels like you're watching someone not, not compete on their own, getting help, because the TV shows, it's kind of special to watch that one-on-one dynamic. So we have altered the rules for television shows where you can only talk to the ball rep during a break. So before the match, at the halfway point when we're at commercial, and we've actually been able to capture a lot of really good sound bites during a commercial break or before a match, by miking up the players and miking up the ball like a caddy, in golf.
Yeah.
And by capturing their conversations, the fan or the viewer back home learns a little bit more about bowling. And I think that's only a good thing.
Okay. When you talk about mic'd up players, I cannot get through something on the history of the PBA without mentioning the words, "Who do you think you are? I am." What was that moment in 2012 like, for you from where you were standing?
Oh, it was awesome. And that's one of those that I remember everything about that day because it was so special. And not just because of who do you think you are, I am, but because of what Pete Weber did. I mean,
Mhm.
and Pete, that was his fifth U.S. Open. He broke his father's record. He was like 49 years old or something. Weren't really expecting it, and he's just the most electric player to watch. So you're automatically on edge whenever he's on a show. And so then for it to come down to the last shot and needing to strike to win, strike to claim it, and have him throw the perfect ball, that alone was just incredible. And you remember he was, yelling at the crowd, and I was
Mhm.
trying to figure out, what is going on here. And I never could identify who he was yelling at, but there was a kid in the front row that was scared to death because Pete was yelling at him, and the kid really wasn't saying anything. So we have these signs that are up on the side of the lanes, down lane, and this kid was hiding behind the signs. He was ducked down, and his mom was sitting with him. And the kid didn't see any of the tournament because he was hiding behind the signs so he wouldn't get yelled at.
Yeah.
And after the tournament, though, I went to him and I said, "Would you want a pin autographed by Pete Weber, or are you mad at him?" And the kid said, "No, I'll take it. I'll take it." So I went to Pete and said, "Sign this pin." He signed it. I gave it to the kid, and I always wonder if I should try to find that kid, see if he still has that pin.
Yeah.
But that was one part of it. And then another part was, so then when Pete wins, he's going to go crazy because he always does. Yep. I didn't know what he was saying at the time, but you can even see on the clip, you can see me stand up and I'm looking over to the side. And what I'm looking at is the monitor, because I just want to make sure we're getting this.
Yep.
It's like, is our TV show getting this? And thankfully, we have the best sideline lane side cameraman in the business, Charles Montgomery, and he got it. he got it all. And so we had the show, and then so we didn't know what he said. What happened was we went back and we were going to dinner. I was with Mike J and Jason Thomas and a couple of people. We had dinner at Arthur's in Long Island, or in New Jersey, or near Carolier, and we were watching the show on YouTube because it was already put on YouTube, and we were more impressed with Gary Thorne saying "strike to claim it, strike to claim." It was so exciting, and Gary Thorne was so good. And then we saw that people were commenting about what Pete said. So then we probably watched Pete and tried to figure out what he was saying about 100 times that night, And so it's just so iconic. I mean, I got a coffee cup with that on it. I got a shirt with it on it. Everybody asks about it. And, so I love Pete, and he's always been, people think he's a troublemaker or something. He's the least trouble. You can count on him for anything. I love to watch him bowl. He's still like a celebrity. Every time I meet him, I'm excited to meet him, to see him and say hi. Sure. And this year was tough when he retired, from the national tour. And I was glad I was there, to be able to see his last balls. But I watched his entire last match, didn't leave that. He bowled Tom Doherty at the World Series of Bowling, and he bowled great. And I watched every ball because I didn't want to miss a chance to see that guy bowl. And now he won twice this year on the PBA 50 tour. He made the show, I think, 3 or 4 times. So he's still got it. It's just a little different on the kids tour.
Sure. One of the things that you can't help but notice on the kids tour, as you call it, is the two-handers. That has really come into prominence, as you've really grown in the PBA. What was it like for you as these two-handed bowlers start not only making noise, but making shows, winning titles, winning majors?
Yeah, I mean, at first, when I first started hearing about two-hand bowling, I just thought it was a joke. I mean, I just thought, wow, what is going on? But I was like most people in bowling, critiquing lane conditions, bowling ball technology, and thinking that it all sort of devolved, to this people throwing it with two hands. What's happening? And then, but I didn't shut it out. I kept hearing more and more about it. Then I went and watched Belmo bowl at the Masters. He was just an amateur. He wasn't even on the PBA tour, but he would come over and bowl the Masters when he was a kid. And I watched him and realized that he was really, really good, and that he wasn't just throwing it. And this is before he was as refined as he is now. And he was really exciting. I mean, so I'm always looking for exciting things and things that would make you turn your head. And his strikes were louder. The pins were flying more. He was cool, and so I'm like, we got to get this guy on tour. And Belmo, he didn't think he needed the PBA tour. He was going to bowl internationally and bowl all these tournaments in whatever country he could go to. He didn't want to stay in the United States for extended periods of time. The PBA formats were really not inviting to new players because you had to win through a PTQ.
So the idea that a Belmo would have to come from Australia, bowl 7 games in a PTQ, not make it into the cut, and then have to wait a week to bowl the next tournament, it was not inviting to people like that. So, I did a controversial thing and gave him commissioner exemptions into 2 straight events so he could have a real shot at experiencing the PBA. And in my heart, I believed that the bug would catch him and he'd realize this is where I'm going to become a star. And I had these conversations with him. Carmen Salvino, I brought Carmen in. I brought in the big guns to talk to him. And, where you're going to become a legend is on the PBA tour. And what you could do for the sport of bowling, it's only going to happen if you do it on the PBA tour. And once you get a taste of competition against the best in the world, you are not going to want to bowl anything else. And he came over and did it. And I think his first, and everybody was mad, and they were mad at me, they were mad at him, and they didn't like those commissioner exemptions. And the first one, he came in almost last place in, I think it was in Buffalo, and it was on Cheetah. And he didn't do well. But then the next week, I think he made match play. He did really well. And then later on that year, he won his first tournament. And when he won it, it was one of the more emotional moments I've had at the PBA. And I remember the first I called was Kevin Dornberger, who was in charge of World Bowling at the time. And Dornberger had always been open to calm down about 2-hand bowling and thought it was the future or a part of the future. And so I called him and said, wow, it happened. And it's not going to stop now. Fashion. I mean, it was on a dual lane pattern. It was 2009, and he was using a plastic ball on the right lane on a short condition, and a reactive ball on the left lane playing in on the longer condition. And it was really inspiring. And it was the first Australian to win, first 2-hander to win. And from then on, and now go to junior gold, and it's 25% of the boys are 2-handed, and at least maybe more now. But it doesn't mean that you can't still win 1-handed. I've had these conversations. I'm like, look at Rash, what he just did at the USBC. Look at Chris Prather. I mean, look at there's plenty of really top 1-handed players still competing. Bill O'Neill, EJ Tackett, and it's not like you're shut out if you don't bowl 2-handed, but it's something that seems to make kids excited about bowling. They like to do it because the ball hooks more, and that's fun. And when they're younger, and so now you got to dial in that power and figure out how to do it correctly to be able to beat pros. But it certainly has been. Belmo has been the star of my 11 years on the PBA as the commissioner of the PBA. He was player of the year 6 of those years.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's been definitely a really limited schedule, so now that you hit.
Well, I didn't catch that last part.
I think our timing is off.
Yeah, a little bit. You're kind of cutting in and out a little bit. Let me try and get another question in as as you maybe move around a little bit. We talked about one of the major changes in the last few years with the Fox deal, and then a year later, we hear the announcement that Bolero has taken over the PBA. You were retained as commissioner, even though Bolero's Coley Edison was made CEO.
Can you hear me? me now?
I can hear you. You're still kind of crackling. Let's see. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Oh,
All right.
okay. How about now? Can you hear me now? Hello? You still there?
I'm here.
Okay.
Got
All right.
it?
Yep. Now I
I
can
think
hear
we're
you.
delayed.
Yep, just a little bit. What I was asking you
I
is,
can hear you.
oh,
Can't
what
hear
was
me?
that? Yep. Okay, you can hear me. All right. What I was getting into was the Bolero deal. The deal where Bolero takes over the PBA. You stick on as commissioner, but Coley Edison is still the CEO. What are the differences in the responsibilities that you two have?
Well, it's really great. It's great for me because she's concentrating so much more on the business side and marketing, sponsorships, um, and trying to advance different initiatives tied to the licensing of the PBA. So to have people and a corporation like Bolero, behind those efforts is uh, is something we've never had, and for the PBA.
Yeah. Let's see. You you know also that same year, I don't know if you've seen it. I'm guessing you have. But IFC puts out this mockumentary called Any Given Saturday Afternoon. Have you seen it?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, you're correct.
I've seen it.
Well, we're not getting you right now. We can see you, but we can't hear you. Oh, looks like we're losing him a little bit. But hopefully he can get back on. Oh, there we go.
Are we back?
We're back. Yep.
We back? Yeah, yeah. No, I've seen it. It's really funny. It's great. It's great stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is that something that's easy to just kind of laugh off, or is that something that you guys huddle together and say, "Oh my gosh, we need to, do some damage control here"?
No, no. I think you got to have a sense of humor for that. I love that they paid attention to bowling at all, and then they really captured a lot of things. It's hilarious, So I'm all for it.
Sure. So then this, coming TV season, we have this show called Smallwood. How
Yeah.
exciting is that, for you, and what do you hope to see out of it?
That's awesome. That's another one of the first. I mentioned the first World Series of bowling, and that was in Detroit, and that's the one that Tom won, and it was a huge
Mhm.
underdog story, and it went global. I mean, everybody did a story on it, from Sports Illustrated to the National Enquirer, Current Affair. Everybody was all over it. The laid off auto worker from Detroit during the recession says, I'm joining the PBA, and he wins the world championship. And I've been involved and tried to help, and we've been trying to help different owners of Tom's story turn that into either a movie or a television show for all these years. And it was really close a few times. Jack Black was going to play him in a movie at one point,
Yeah.
and I got to meet Jack Black and go to breakfast with him, and he asked me who should play Wes Molat and who should play, I mean, it was really interesting. And the person that was going to produce that movie actually went on to produce Spotlight, which won the Academy Award. And so meeting her, Nicole Rockland was her name, meeting her and then seeing her at the Academy Awards win the Oscar was really cool. But they ended up not getting it done. So many things, so many stories in Hollywood just don't happen, no matter how close and no matter who's involved. But so it was really good to find out that another group bought it. They turned it into a sitcom. CBS bought it, and, you know, so it's going to be a show. And I've had some conversations with Pete Holmes, who is the going to play Smallwood. He's the star. He's a comedian. I've talked to him a few times, invited him to events, and he's a really good guy. I've seen him on a lot of different shows, and they've been really good. So I think it's going to be a fun little show. But it's awesome for bowling and great for Tom, great for Smalls more than anything. So I'm looking forward to that. It should start, I think, in January, right in the second part of the, you know, new shows usually start up in September, but this one's going to be a mid-season replacement show. So it's going to start probably end of December or January.
Sure. Yeah, we'll definitely all be watching because you know, folks like me, when something bowling is on TV, we're all over it. Tell me about the recent announcement.
And, you know, people have to reserve.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. People have to reserve.
They're, you know, I hear a lot of people say, oh, he's not bowling right, or they're not doing it exactly the same as pro bowling, or, you know, people have to let that go. I mean, in no television show do they accurately reflect, you know, the exact way something is done. So just enjoy it for what it is, a great show based around a great sport.
Sure. Kind of like when the Golden Girls went bowling. Yeah.
Oh, you knew that was good.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The recent announcement about Bolero going public, is that going to mean anything for either the casual fan or even how the tour operates?
Well, I don't know specifically, but I do believe that it means further investment, you know, in these properties that have value. And not only do they own, you know, 300 bowling centers, but the PBA being a big part of being a big media component of their holdings, people don't want to have investors without investing in the product. So I really believe that it's going to mean a lot. I mean, I care the most about our players and our fans, and I think the fans will see more bowling, and I think the players will have more opportunities. And
I think I missed that last part. You said the players will have more opportunities.
Yeah, the players will have more opportunities, and the fans will have more chances to watch. So ultimately, it's going to be really good.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I asked our last guest, his name is Jim Lucas, you know, about whether he watches the PBA Tour on TV. He said he didn't. And I asked him, okay, what would it get you, you know, what would it take to get you to start? And he mentioned, you know, having them on prime time, which has been done, you know, under your reign. But let me ask you this. What would it take to get it back to a place where you can count on it, like when we were kids, to be same bat time, same bat channel each and every Saturday afternoon or the like?
Well, it's just the biggest thing is the partnership with the media partner or your television network partner. I mean, that's the key. What day works for them, and what day works for them and works for the PBA is not always that easy to come up with that. We've had success by going in clusters at times and doing a lot of shows within a few days, kind of like golf is 4 days in a row when it's on. And we've had success with that. So we're on different days. And then we've had success being every Sunday for a while. But then there's times when a network might say, you know, we've got a hole on Wednesday nights or Monday nights, and can you fill it? And we're very flexible. That's one of the great things about the PBA. And we can fulfill those needs and then try to start something there. Like the playoffs that year I was talking about, 2019, most of those shows were Monday nights. and that was really cool. But weekends are when most people are watching sports. That's when our ratings are the highest, and and what we're always fighting for is more so even than the regularity of our program is the opportunity to follow strong programming or have strong programming follow us, or be on a day that's not necessarily against a really strong program on another network. So you're considering competition, you're considering lead in, and all of those things help you get a larger number, because ultimately the only way we have power is by having viewership, and the numbers have to be high enough for you to say, well, if you put us here, we'll perform for you. So we want to continually get the best slots possible, kind of whether or not they're at the same bat time seed bat channel or not. When we were kids and watched it on ABC, it was connected with Wide World of Sports, and so every time that's on, every time either sport's on, they're both going to be on. Something like that can help, but people think. You can't just wave a magic wand on that.
Sure. Yeah. Let's talk about the future. What does it look like in bowling for you, both for your job and simply participating in the sport?
Well, participating is pretty much Wednesday nights at Alpine Lanes. That's basically it. and the beer better be cold. I mean, that's pretty much my participation. But for the whole sport, I think we have a lot of momentum. I think that we have a lot of young stars. Kyle Troop won more money this year than any pro bowler ever did, and he's one of the most exciting players that's ever come around. And I think that with building our relationship with Fox, and building our online presence, building our touch points through Bolero with all the bowling centers and all the bowlers around the country, and they've started the PBA Junior and the PBA Certified League Bowler program, and so all of these things, adding together, I feel like we've got a lot of momentum. I'd really like to see bowling in the Olympics, and I'd like to get a little bit more involved in that effort. And I think that that's something that I've been trying to do from the PBA standpoint for a while, prove that there are players all over the world that can compete and that it should be an Olympic sport. But I'd like to get a little bit more involved with that process. And with the Olympics being in LA in 2028, I wouldn't give up hope, try to get it there. So, I think it's just onward and upward. I mean, like we said at the start of this conversation, it's back now. We had a rough year, and still we were strong through that year. The ratings were still good. You have to give it to Bolero for sticking with the program, even though we didn't have fans. They basically gave up their centers all, in Florida and around the country to host events they've never hosted before, because we couldn't go into other bowling centers or other states. And still to have a strong television. One of the things we created, because of the pandemic, was the Strike Derby, which was just on. And I love that show. I mean, I think it's awesome. I mean, it's so much fun to watch. I think that's something that'll last forever. And it's kind of like the World Series in that sometimes you have to start things out of necessity, and they become iconic and they become regular and part of the future. So no, I'm really pretty excited, actually, and it takes a lot for me to get excited after all these years, but I'm pretty excited about the future.
Sure. Tell me the next time we're gonna see bowling on TV. Last I checked the schedule, it basically ended with the Strike Derby, and I know they've got a little time off here. But what are the next events for people to check out the PBA on TV?
Yeah, well, probably not till January. Oh no, you know what? We're gonna have a surprise event in October, and I won't even say what it's going to be yet, but We're going to have an event in October, and it's going to be on an NFL Sunday after you talk about following a good show. When you follow the NFL, you're following a very good show. So, I mean, that's a lot of viewers, and we get big audience for it. And we're going to do one in October. Then it probably won't be till January that you see the regular tour, come back full swing. But don't forget, this summer in the end of July through all of August, we have a summer tour, and that'll be all online. So it'll all be streaming.
Okay.
And so that's 5 different PBA Tour title events, and great fields and great players, full fields in every one of these events. Great opportunities for a lot of people to win a PBA title, and also to get points. I mean, if you're in the top 75 in PBA points at the end of this year, you'll be eligible for things like the PBA League draft, and you'll get priority entry into major events next year. So it's a really critical 5 weeks for a lot of players to be in that top 75. And there's also a big cash bonus for the top points getter on the summer tour of, I think it's a $40,000 bonus purse. So, it's going to be exciting to watch these guys bowl. And really, they're kind of like super regionals in a way, but they're not, because they're national title events. The minimum first place is 10,000. There's 100 players in each one, and they're tough, really tough conditions we're going to put out there this summer. So it's going to be a fun summer tour which kind of supplements the national tour that's got all the big money and the big major events and the television.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to all that. I did have a couple of comments here, both from your son, as it were. He said rushed. Is that an inside joke?
Making fun of my music choice.
Oh,
making fun of my music choice.
and of course, there's the widely known hashtag Team Shimmy.
Yeah. These guys are. We'll see how far these kids can make it. It'll be fun to watch Wisconsin Whitewater next year too. That's my bowling. That's really my bowling future, is watching him bowl, watching Rory bowl, and watching Nate, and seeing how they gel as a team. It's a really good team at Wisconsin Whitewater, and they're going to be close enough so I can hopefully go watch them bowl a lot. And I tell you, bowling is a great sport to watch as a fan if you care about the winner. And when my son's bowling, of course I care, and you get really involved in what's happening. It's just as exciting to watch as any professional sport. So that's really the job of the PBA, and my job and Bolero's job is to get people to know the PBA players so they care who wins. And if you care if EJ Tackett wins, it's exciting watching him bowl for a title, because every shot is so critical, and it becomes emotional. It becomes exhilarating and inspiring. And I think the best sport to watch, and because there's a lot of luck involved. I mean, you can throw a perfect shot and leave a pin. You could throw a terrible shot and strike. And and in a bowling match on TV where it's only 10 frames and it goes by in 20 minutes, I mean, anything can happen at any time. So I hope more and more people just want to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. You know how we go, off the sheet on this show. You've seen it a couple times. We ask you to challenge somebody else who could be of any skill level, but has a unique bowling story to tell and has a passion for the sport. So, Tom Clark, who would you like to challenge to be on a future episode of Bowling with the Fef?
When I just mentioned bad luck, and I thought about a perfect strike that was a stone 8. And the guy,
I know where you're going with this.
and the guy that's been, the anchor man really for our television show the whole time I've been there, and for 21 years. Next year, he will tie Nelson Burton Jr.'s record as the longest PBA analyst on TV. It would be Randy Peterson. Wow. I mean. Yeah. I think Randy would be, and he's a lot funnier than me. I think you'd have a good time, and he probably has better Wi-Fi too. So,
well, if Randy is watching, Randy, we would love to have you on the show. You can even talk about having coffee with that sweet roll. direct message me on Facebook if you have it. If not, bowlingwiththefef@yahoo.com is my email address. Like I said, we would love to have him on the show. Tom, I got to get you back to Mrs. Clark. We've really appreciated having you on here, as you've been vacationing in Sturgeon Bay. Continued success to you and the PBA Tour as a whole. We will be watching as things progress, of course.
I really appreciate it. Stick with what you're doing, and I really appreciate you doing these shows and paying attention to bowling. And it was great talking to you. Thank you very much.
Great to talk to you too. Absolutely. There he goes. Tom Clark, PBA Commissioner. Just a great conversation. And like I said, just thrilled to have him on the show here. Our next live stream is coming up on July 19th, Monday, at 6 p.m. Central. So we hope you'll join us then, either live or on replay. Until then, be just and fear not. We'll see you next time. Have a great week.